YouTube, what is going on, man? Back with another video review. But before we start the video review, I'm gonna do a new little segment here where I just ask you a random thought-provoking question. So my first question of the day, or of this episode, is Batman really a superhero even though he has no superpowers? I'll let y'all think about that one for a second, all right? And let me know in the comments below. Now, back to what you're really here for. This, as you can tell, is going to be a Vortex Optics review. And this is the new Gen 3 Razor 6-36, all right? Now, before I get into the entirety of the review, I do want to preface this by saying this is not a scope that I bought. I was not financially compensated for this review. This is a review that I wanted to do on my own merit. And as always, I will give you both the goods and the bads of this scope. This is a T&E model from Vortex. So shout out to Vortex for giving me the opportunity to get my hands on one of these and put it through some matches and things like that. For those of you that don't know, T&E stands for Test and Evaluation. So this was a T&E unit, which means that it has been in multiple evaluators' hands, not just myself, and I got to send this back and it'll go on to somebody else after that. So it is not a brand new scope. When I received it, it did not appear to be a brand new scope either. Not like it was totally thrashed, but I mean, you could tell it was dirty and whatnot. So somebody used it before me, and I definitely tried to use it as much as I could. Unfortunately, I didn't have it for the normal 6 months that I like to test an optic, but I did have it for 60 days, and in those 60 days, I was able to take it to a couple of local matches as well as a few national level matches. So I will say that I did use it, and I did not take care of it while I used it. So Vortex, if you're watching this, just know that I beat the shit out of this scope, to be honest. So let's get started, and I'm gonna start with the box because there's a few things that I wanna show you guys, which something that I always appreciate about Vortex, and this is me just being honest, because if you've ever opened up a scope like a Schmidt Bender, the box sucks ass. Like, the presentation is terrible. It's a scope in a bubble wrap in a white box. Now I know, what difference does that fucking make? Well, it doesn't, except for the fact that I like a few accessories included with my scope. So the box, I mean, it's always nice. Think about it. Apple, for example, those of you that own an iPhone, actually spent R&D money on the presentation of how you open an iPhone box, fun fact. So it's not by mistake that it's hard to open the box at first. It's like a revealing moment that Apple wants you to have. All right. And I like the presentation of this box. I mean, it's got nice colors, manuals and whatnot. But anyway, it comes with a sunshade, which I can appreciate because not a lot of manufacturers are offering sunshades anymore with the optic without extra cost. It comes with a switch view throw lever. Now, I will say that I didn't need it and I didn't use it because the magnification ring tension is excellent on this scope, but it does come with a switch view throw lever, which is about another, I think they're about like $100 from Switch View directly, so that's always cool. You get your normal, stickers and whatnot, that's whatever. You get not one, but 2 illumination batteries, all right? I mean, you get at least one. I don't know if they include an extra one because this was a T&E unit or whatnot, but you get at least one, but I got 2 in this box, so that's cool. You get 2 Allen keys for the new zeroing system, which I'll touch on in a second. But what I would like to point out is, guys, these Allen keys are not for the same fucking thing, all right? I can't understand how no one realized that these are 2 different sizes. Guys, like, they're not. One is for the windage and elevation. The other one with the smaller head is for this thing so you can take it on and off, the switch view, okay? Now the back end, yes, does have this like coin-like function where you can use it to rotate the LTEC turrets, and I'll go over those in a moment once I bring you guys a little bit closer. But honestly, it's nice to see that you get the Allen keys, which, other scope manufacturers are not including. Not a big deal. I mean, who doesn't have a set of Allen keys? But still, just nice touches for for a higher end scope that other companies just aren't really doing anymore. I get it, maybe cut costs, whatever, but just a nice appearance there, okay? And the foam in here is pretty dense, so it gives me confidence that it won't be damaged in transit, because honestly, if anybody could break a rock, it's fucking USPS, UPS, and FedEx. It's absolutely incredible. So, without further ado, the Razor Gen 3. Yes, it's still in what some of you guys call the poopy brown or the bronze color. This is the only color they offer in this scope. This is the mill version, of course. I don't typically shoot MOA, so... but yeah, this is the mill with the EBR-7D reticle. I'll let you guys look that up online. It's your basic 2/10 with a tree and then a quick reference half mil mark, which I love. All right, that's definitely my preference on reticles as of right now. So they did a good job with the reticle here. I'll go over the specs real quick. Nothing too crazy. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a Razor, so it weighs 45 ounces, down 3 ounces from a Razor 2. Okay, cool. It's still relatively compact for a full-size magnification scope like this, all right? It is, in fact, I have the specs here, 15.25, so 15 1/4 inches from butt to nut. And honestly, that's a pretty good size. Not that on a full-size PRS rig it matters, but all right, that's cool. You have your non-locking quick adjust diopter here. Now what I will say, and I'll bring you guys in closer, is I do like that they actually marked the diopter with indicator lines here, so you can kind of see where that's at. I know a lot of guys take, a paint pen or something like that to their diopter or just straight up tape it. That's fine too, but it's nice to have a little something as a point of reference, so I can appreciate that. You got your mag ring here, which goes from 6 to 36. Okay, and it's a pretty wide throw from one end to the other, but I don't know too many situations where you'd go all the way from 6 to 36 or vice versa in one throw. That's pretty massive. Okay, excellent tension on that. Moving forward, we have the saddle section, about a normal size saddle section. You have your traditional Vortex locking illumination with an off in between every number, so I can appreciate that. Numbers 1 through 10 on brightness. Then you have the parallax here, which they actually dramatically improved. So the parallax goes down to 10 yards, which is great for one indoor dry fire. So I had no problem indoor dry firing downstairs with this scope. And that makes it very, very suitable for 22 and air gun. So this could also not only go on your centerfire, obviously, but it can go on your NRL 22 rig, your air gun rig, whatever you want to put it on. So that's absolutely awesome. Then we have windage and elevation here, both locking per usual. And I'll bring you guys in closer, but the long and short of it is that one of the biggest complaints, including mine, about this scope is the feel of the turrets. Now, Vortex is aware of that, and you can send them your scope back if you're unsatisfied with the feel and sound of the turrets, and they will do something. What that is, I'm not sure, but they will do something to make it feel and sound better. And by all accounts, and everyone that I've talked to that has done that, they have said it comes out much, much, much better. And if they get the turrets worked out on this scope, I think that's the biggest immediate gripe that I have, okay? And as I was saying, the turrets can be improved by Vortex if you send them back, which I think is great. I hope that they start to implement those changes from the jump so that they don't have to continue to take scopes back, and then, you know what I mean, like as soon as you buy it, you got to send it back to get the turrets updated or fixed, or I wouldn't necessarily say fixed because they're not broken, but adjusted, I think is the right word. All right, so I'm going to bring you guys in closer and I'll show you some details of this scope that I like and I don't like. And we will begin back here at this end. All right, guys, so I wanted to bring you in closer for a better look at some of the details of this scope, and then we'll get into more of my likes and dislikes. Here is the marking for the diopter adjustment. I actually like that. It's all the way around the scope, so that's a pretty nice little touch. I know you guys paint or tape your diopters, but it's a nice touch. The mag ring, excellent tension here, so I honestly did not use the throw lever that came with the scope at all, but I think it's a nice touch that they include that. A full-sized throw lever at that. We have, again, locking illumination, which I know a lot of guys don't use illumination, but for those that do, this is the only scope on the market that I can think of that has a locking illumination. So that's a nice, interesting feature. Parallax, again, down to 10 yards, so perfect for an air gun, 22 and all that. Now, the elevation turret. And windage, kind of, but mostly the elevation. Something that everyone interacts with every time they shoot this scope. Okay, so what are people liking and not liking about this elevation turret? Basically, what it comes down to is sound and feel of this elevation turret. This is brought on by a couple things. One, it is a locking elevation turret. So locking elevation turrets, especially the pull up and push down kind, typically, for the most part, are going to have a smidge of wiggle, and that's just based on the design, right? Because this has to slide down into a collar, and so you need to have just a smidge of wiggle in case you're trying to slide it down kind of off center and things like that. Also, it is a 10 mil per turn, right? Same as the Razor 2. So what happens with that is, as opposed to something with 15 mils per turn, it takes you longer to get all the way around because obviously the clicks are more spread out. So depending on how much you need to dial up and down, that can be a thing. And that was something that I did run into on certain stages where I'm going from 600 yards to the next target is 1,300, etc. Then it takes a while to get up there. And one thing that I don't like about this scope is the feel of the turrets. The sound doesn't bother me as much, honestly. Sound of turrets isn't a huge deal to me, but the feel, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of, at least on this particular model, there's a lot of resistance when I'm dialing up. It doesn't feel nearly as fast, and dialing down as well. It's almost like there's like an O-ring in there that you're riding against, and it's like dragging you. Not, I shouldn't say the turret is dragging, but it's like it's like slowing you down. It's like running with a parachute on your back almost. It's like, ugh, you know. So where I can go, so it's at 0 right now. One entire turn of my hand only takes me to like 4.5 mils. Okay, so that means I got to reposition and keep winding it up. And I don't like that. I don't like how hard it is to turn in comparison to some of the other scopes that I own. Not to say that you can't easily turn this, but I think that they could lighten up this tension a bit. And how that happens, I'm not sure. I'm sure there's some internal adjustment that they can make somehow, but I'd like it a little lighter. The other thing is the feel, and a lot of people don't like the feel. The turrets definitely feel less positive than a Razor 2, which is a disappointment because the Razor 2 honestly had really good turrets, especially for the cost of the scope and things like that. But just in general, the Razor 2 had really good turrets. And so to not get a similar feel out of what it's supposed to be, its replacement essentially, is kind of disappointing. And as I mentioned, I do know that Vortex is taking these back. Obviously, this is not my scope, and it's a T&E, so, I mean, there's no point in me sending it back to get adjusted, especially because I don't have that much time left with it at the time of this review. But if I did own this scope, then I would 100% send it back. Of course, you know, Vortex takes care of everything, including the shipping and whatnot, so it doesn't really cost you anything except maybe a week or two without the scope. Not a big deal since, you know, a lot of times guys are always saying, oh, I work so much, can't shoot. This guy right here making this video. So I'm not sure exactly, again, what they do on the inside of this to make it feel and sound better, but by all accounts, it is much better. And if they can get that consistency out of the box with these scopes, I think that they would make a even larger killing than they already are. I mean, these scopes are doing really well already on the market. Another thing that I don't like is, so when you raise this turret here, I'm trying to get the camera to focus. Come on. So when you raise the turret here, you can see that the line does not extend up the body. So there's like a small gap there. If I owned this scope, I would take a white paint pen and draw this index line on the body of the scope under in that gap to fill it in, so it's a little bit easier to line up when you're turning it. Not to say that there's a huge problem, but I would like that line to be right up against the bottom of the actual part of the turret here, the bronze part that turns. So I would do that. I think that they could easily make that change on this particular version of the scope. If that's something they wanted to implement into manufacturing, will they? Probably not, but I did give them that feedback. Now, we'll go to the new LTEC zeroing system. It is the same for both windage and elevation. It's similar to the Gen 2 Razor, but way, way, way simpler and easier. So it's basically one screw right here. You loosen that. So you leave your turrets at 0, loosen the one screw, and then literally just turn this top dial as if it was a elevation turret. Well, this is your elevation turret, right? This is the inner ring. And these are all marked for the most part, which is something I'll get to in a second, with your elevation numbers. And again, this is similar to a Razor 2 where it's infinite adjustment, where you can actually go between clicks. So if you need like half a mil to get that perfect zero, you can do it with this scope. Some scopes that I've had and other guys have had, yes, you're kind of in between. You're like a little high at 0.1, but a little low at, you know, down 0.1 and whatnot. So you just kind of settle for close enough. With this, you can literally get the perfect zero if you want to spend that much time with it. But what I don't like, and maybe this is just me being a dumbass, but I wasn't the only one that also kind of looked at this and said, okay, that's kind of weird. So on the top here, it says 1 click equals 0.1 MRAD. Okay, cool. I mean, we know that this scope is in 1/10. You can see that by reading the turret and knowing, and obviously if you're buying this, you knew that you're buying the mil version. But what I don't like is that they don't tell you which way to turn this for up and down. Now, yes, common sense would tell you, okay, cool, well, the numbers go bigger, they go down. But which way is up and which way is down? Think about that for a second. When you turn this turret, which way is up and which way is down? Okay, now you can follow what's down here, but when you're looking at the top at first, because the Razor 2s used to tell you, turn this way for up and this way for down. So I would just like them, there's no need to put that 1 click equals 0.1 mils on both sides of where you slip the coin or the tool, whatever you're going to use to turn this. I did it with my fingers. You can turn that inner turret with your fingers. But on one side, you can leave that. That's fine. But on the other side, if they could put an arrow pointing in the direction this way up, then dumbasses like me wouldn't accidentally turn it the wrong way a couple times. And I'd really love to see that on the windage. Which way is right and which way is left? You know? So again, you don't need to put 0.1 MRAD or 1 click equals 0.1 MRAD, because realistically, these don't even click. It's just a smooth dial. So that's something that I would like to see them change, is put this way left, this way right, so that and again, maybe this is just because I'm an idiot, but I would like to see that change so that I'm not dialing the wrong way accidentally when I'm trying to zero this scope. Another thing that the Razor 2 had better, in my opinion, is the second rev indicator. So it's the same style where it's right here over the parallax knob, and it's this little pointy knob that's going to pop out. So let me crank this up and I'll show you guys how long it takes to get to 10 mils here. Okay, so I should be getting pretty close. Kind of hard to tell right now. Okay, so let me bring it in a little closer. 8, 9, and that's 10. Okay, where is my second rev indicator? I'm trying to get this to focus here. Oh, there it is. That small little fucking white thing sticking off the side of the turret. It's like super small and barely pops out. This thing right here, right there where my finger is, right there, that little white thing. And this is more or less, honestly, how it looks behind the scope. So if you have to dial more than 10 mils, which I get it, in a lot of PRS matches is not a common thing, but I did run into a couple, and like this right here is not enough. It should stick out more, man, honestly. I like the fact that it's white, it's nice and bright, but if you have a Razor 2 or you go to the range and see a Razor 2, ask the guy to spin his knob, take it to the second rev, and this is going to be halfway out here, man. So I'd like to see this come out more because it's pretty easy to miss, and you can think that you're on the first rev if you're not paying attention and be 10 mils high. So I would like to see this stick out more. But again, use case, if you guys don't really shoot over 10 mils ever, depending on the caliber you're shooting, then maybe it's not a big deal to you. Let me crank this all the way back down to 0. Okay, that's 0. You can go 5/10 below 0. It's obviously the 0 stop is already preset at that, so you cannot adjust it to get more below 0 than that or less below 0 than that. That's been a pretty standard feature of all scopes for the most part, except for like Nightforces that have the clutch system. But the the second rev indicator, not a huge fan of that. Other than that, obviously we have a moving forward 56mm objective, okay? And that is something that I think, okay, obviously moving forward, 56mm objective, that's pretty standard. 6-36 because they had to one-up Nightforce at 7-35, I don't know. But nonetheless, it's usable throughout the entire magnification range. I did shoot at 36 power with this when I was zeroing, you know, a couple of barrels, a couple of guns, and it is usable provided there's not too much mirage where you're at and environmental conditions. And speaking of mirage and environmental conditions and usability at high power, I know someone's going to ask about glass because all of you guys want to know about the glass quality of this scope. Honestly, guys, this is really good glass. I was far more impressed with this glass than I thought I would be, and that's just me being honest. I knew that they had improved the glass somewhat on this scope. I didn't think it'd be this much of an improvement. I mean, it is pretty massive day and night difference between a Razor 2. It's up there, man. The glass quality of this and the ease of parallax as well. So when I was shooting matches, I was pretty parallax free almost the entire match without having to adjust it. So it's pretty close to a set it and forget it, the way that Z-Comp and Tangent are parallax free, like a set it and forget it type of setting. This was pretty up there. And that's awesome to not have to worry about, you know, messing with parallax. But the glass quality, this thing is bananas. I looked through it and I was just floored at the jump. Now, is it Tangent ZCO glass? If you're really looking for the differences, no, it's not. But is it really close? Absolutely. Like, it's definitely closer to ZCO level glass than it is to like anything sub 2,000 glass, like sub $2,000 glass. So it's, I mean, it's a marketed improvement in that department. The other thing that I do like about this scope is the eye box and ease of getting behind this scope. So the Razor 2 for a long time has always had the kind of crown in terms of one of the easiest, if not the absolute easiest scope to get behind when you're like in a weird position and you don't have your head absolutely perfect. Like the eye box is super generous. Same thing with this scope. This eye box is really generous. I mean, I could be like canted in some weird retarded position and I could still see it. I could still find it like very easily. I wasn't fighting at all. So the eye box on this thing is great. The clarity and resolution are really good throughout the mag range. They just did a really good job with it. Another thing that I like about this scope is the field of view. So the field of view of this thing was really awesome. I was able to run this scope at 20 power through the majority of the stages that I shot with it with no issue. I know a lot of people like to run around 12 to 15 power, and I was, between the ease of the eye box and the field of view, I was able to run this at 20 power and not feel like I was inside of a Coke bottle. I mean, it was pretty nuts. And so those things, I think, are something that don't show up on a spec sheet that you don't truly appreciate until you actually use this thing. So for those people that buy one of these, open up the box, turn the turret a couple times, look at it and say, I don't like this scope, dude, give it an honest try, man. In actual use, the sound of the turrets did not hold me back. The feel, while I don't like it, didn't necessarily hold me back. The one thing that I do feel like slowed me down legitimately is the actual tension of the turret. Like how hard it is to spin this. Like I can't just like, you know. And so I wish that they could ease up on that and make this easier to turn so that I can essentially in just one, without having to reset my hand, just in one turn like this, make it past 4.5 mils right there. Like that didn't get me hardly anywhere. That got me to 3.3. Like I want to be able to do that and get closer to like 5 or 6 mils, like, and a lot of that is to do with the tension of this. So field of view, eye box, ease of parallax, all things that don't show up on a spec sheet and don't show up in a unboxing review, don't show up in a, oh, I went to my local range and shot this 20 times type of review. Those are the things that you don't notice until you're actually using this in matches and multiple matches, all right? So those are some of the things that I want you guys to pay attention to with this scope if and when you guys buy your own, and actually give it a fair shot. If you're not happy with the turrets, again, send it back to Vortex, and by all accounts, they will do something to it to make it feel and sound better. After that, like if my unit had come with turrets that I liked, dude, I mean, I would be just completely 100% in love with this thing. So I'm like 95% in love with this thing. It is a really, really good scope. And the other thing that I want to touch on with Vortex in general, and I know that I'm just going to get a bunch of stupid comments over this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Vortex offers a great, easy, no questions asked warranty. I've used it before in a Gen 1 Razor, and I know I'm going to get the fucking comment. I know it. Well, if you had a better scope, you wouldn't have to use the fucking warranty. Yeah, you're also an idiot, because I've broken almost every scope known to man, including Nightforce and tangents. So, I mean, you run something hard enough, and if you actually use it and actually don't give a shit about it, then you will at some point damage it or do something where it needs to get sent back. Okay? Just about the only scope that I haven't legitimately broken yet that has like a lot of use on it is my Z-Comp. But I have sent a tangent or two. I sent 2 tangents back, one 5 to 25 and one 3 to 15. I sent back an attacker. I've sent back like 3 Schmitz. You know, but nonetheless, that's so I mean, Vortex has a great super quick warranty, and when you're investing almost 3,000, and again, guys, you don't have to pay 3 grand for this scope. There are so many places, if you just call them and ask them, they will sell this for under that. But point is that you're going to be spending the better chunk of 3 grand on a scope. You want to know that someone's there to take care of you, and maybe the scope doesn't break by its own account. Maybe you drop it because you weren't paying attention, or it falls over because some idiot fell into it or something like that. You want to have that coverage. And I've seen that before. I don't know that, this is a great hunting scope, but in general, let's say you're climbing up a hill, you slip and you fall, and your rifle goes tumbling down the hill. You're covered. You're good. Okay? So those are a lot of the things that I wanted to touch on with this scope, and I will give you guys my overall impressions right here. All right, now that I've pretty much run you guys through the entire gambit of this scope, what do I ultimately think about it? Honestly, so I'm looking right now on the EuroOptic website here, and these scopes can be found for $29.99, so basically 3 grand, right? And honestly, it's not very hard to find them for under that street price, new. And the used market on these is, already down to around 2,500, give or take, $100 or $2. This scope, to me, is the best scope under $3,000, bar none. There is no scope under $3,000 that I would take over this, okay? If you qualify for the law enforcement military discount through Vortex, it's a no-brainer. Is this as good as the high-end tier 1 scopes like a Z-Comp or a Tangent? No, but it's very close. And honestly, again, if you qualify for a military law enforcement discount, I honestly can't say that I would recommend going with one of the higher options over the value of this scope and what you could do with the money saved. So basically what I'm saying is that you could get this for a very, very good price, and I'm not going to throw out law enforcement or military first responder discount numbers. But just know that you'd save a boatload of money, and with the leftover money, you could either put that towards building your rig or updating it, or honestly, ammo, components, training, whatever, something, match fees, something to actually get out there and shoot and use this scope. Because the value proposition of this scope is pretty nuts. If you want the absolute best top of the line scope, bar none, you have unlimited budget. Is this it? No. Is it close? Yes. So if a Tangent is 100% and a Z-Comp is 98 to 99%, I would say this, in its current state, without refining the turrets and some of the other things that I mentioned, I think it's like 95% of those. Like, you're paying a very small amount. You're paying a large amount of money for very small returns. Now, are there returns from other scopes? Yes. But again, just consider the value proposition. Now, I get it. Some people are going to be like, I would never spend that much money on a Vortex. Well, you're also a fucking idiot. I said it. Okay? Let's not have some brand bias. If you prefer another scope because you like it for the features, or it just fits your rig better, or you like the reticles better, or you're more used to it and you can justify it, that's fine. But saying because it's a Vortex, it's not worth $3,000, you're a fucking idiot. You are, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and say it. You have no idea what you're talking about, and you need to actually learn what to look for and how to evaluate things. It's a problem because I run into so many people, and I actually ran into people saying that about this scope, you know, at the range and things like that, when they were like, oh, what is that? Oh, it's a Vortex. Oh, you know, well, which one? Oh, it's the new Razor 3. Dang, how much is that? Boom, you know, around 3K. Oh, I would never spend that much on a Vortex. Well, I mean, you're an uneducated moron, to be honest. But nonetheless, the country is filled with those, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised, especially in Los Angeles. Anyway, so that about wraps it up. Where do I rank this among scopes? Well, you're just going to have to wait and find out, because as I teased on my Instagram, so if you guys don't follow me, it's the same handle as my YouTube channel, Covert Noob 5 on Instagram. As I teased, I've got a big scope review coming at some point, but I had to get this one out first, again, because I had to return this one to Vortex sooner rather than later. And some of these scopes behind me, actually all of these and then some, are going to be involved in that big scope review. So pay attention for that. Be on the lookout. I did tease it a little bit on my Instagram, but basically, for those of you wondering, I'll give you the long and short. We're going to have this Razor Gen 3, this Tangent, ZCL 5-27, Kahles 5-25, excuse me, DLR, Leupold Mark 5 5-25, a Schmidt Bender 5-25, a Nightforce 7-35, and a Razor Gen 2. All right, and that will be coming later on down the line. As you can imagine, that is going to be a lot of work to put together video-wise. So I already have compared all of those scopes and things like that, but it's going to take me a little while to edit everything and get it to really be a proper presentation for you guys. So I'm not going to tell you where I rank this scope overall, but just know that I consider this truly a tier 1 level scope. The Razor 2 was and still is one of the best bang for the bucks you can get on the market, especially at the used market price. But is it, or was it, a tier 1 scope? No, it wasn't, and it isn't. But it's not priced that way either. This is a tier 1 scope, actually affordably priced for tier 1 scopes. All right, so that'll do it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one, man. Please hit that, smash that subscribe button, and stay safe and stay shooting.